Hopefully this weekend you get a chance to see Spider-Man Homecoming. I did, and I'm super excited to bring you guys my spoiler review. Now, I must stress, very big spoiler warning. If you have not seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet, please go watch the movie, go watch my spoiler-free review, and then see the movie and come back here. But if you don't care about spoilers, then please continue watching, or if you've already seen it. So I made a list of all the things I wanted to talk about right when I walked out of the theater, just so there were some things that I knew I was going to forget after a couple of days, so I just wanted to get everything down right away so I would not forget a single thing that I wanted to talk about. And then just to help refresh my memory a little bit more, I watched a couple other spoiler videos just to make sure there were things that I might have wanted to talk about that I just didn't have written down, and so I compiled a list of things I wanted to talk about, and I am now gonna go through it and just give my thoughts on things a little more in depth. So first, let's talk about the ending, because the ending, I think, is the funniest scene in the entire movie. So, what happens is Peter turns down Tony Stark's offer to join the Avengers. He goes back home. He finds a bag on his bed. He puts on the Spider-Man costume, which got taken away from him by Tony Stark earlier in the movie, and so he was using his homemade suit through, like, most of the third act of the movie. So then, at the end, he gets it back. He puts it on. He's standing in his bedroom. He takes the mask off. The shot, it's a really epic cinematic shot, and then it pans over, and it's like his head is like in frame, like about here, and then there's his doorway, and you can just see Aunt May standing in the doorway, and then she goes, "What the?" And then credits. Alright, thoughts on that real quick. I like that they're just not even screwing around with whether or not, leaving it ambiguous to whether or not Aunt May knows Peter is Spider-Man, because one of my, I wouldn't even call this a problem, it's just one of the things that I don't particularly love about the older Spider-Man movies, whether it's Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, or The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's the ambiguity of whether or not Aunt May knows that Peter is Spider-Man, because there are times where you're just like, oh no, she doesn't know. But then there are other times when she'll be giving like a speech and it'll be like, oh, well, maybe she knows, but she's not like flat out saying it, like a Lucius Fox Batman Bruce Wayne situation. Like, he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but they never actually officially have him say, oh, I know you're Batman. He just, you know that he knows. Only it's a little more ambiguous than that. So I like that this one, they're going straight for it, and they're just, she knows. And I feel like that's going to be a really cool dynamic to play on in the next couple movies with him. I mean, she'll probably have a small part in Infinity War. In fact, I'm hoping maybe, like, the part with Spider-Man in the movie, like, before the main action starts, just when the characters are being established, I hope it kind of picks up, like, right after, because that would be kind of cool. But I'm really just looking forward to seeing how their dynamic plays out now that she knows that he's Spider-Man. Unless they decide to just find some stupid way to retcon it, and he makes up some excuse and she buys it. Then we'll go to the mid-credit scene, which teases Scorpion. So there was a guy on the boat during the ferry scene earlier, and he pops up again here, and he's got this big freaking scorpion tattoo on his neck. And then a lot of people figured out that he was playing Mac Gargan, who is the Scorpion. And he says something about having a couple friends on the outside that want Spider-Man dead. And then he says there's a rumor that you know who he is. He's talking to Vulture. He's like, there's a rumor that you know who he is. And then Vulture just says to him, if I knew who he was, he'd be dead already. So it's kind of cool because even though Vulture is a bad guy, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about a lot with the character that I couldn't in the spoiler-free review that I'm going to talk about a little bit more here when I get into other stuff, is that this villain is a villain for all the right reasons. He's just trying to do what's right and protect his family, but he's not evil. He has morals. He's just in a bad spot. And so when Spider-Man saves Liz during the Washington Monument scene, and then he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, he's willing to let him go because he saved his daughter, which I'll get into more later. I didn't want to talk about that right away, but I realized there was no way to scoot around that. And then but Peter eventually also saves him, so he feels like he owes him to keep his secret. And that was really cool. And I hope they find a way to bring Michael Keaton back if they do Sinister Six, which I'm sure is what Scorpion was referring to when he said he had a couple friends on the outside. And then there's the post-credit scene of the Captain America PSA. I'm not even going to go into it. It's just... biggest troll move ever, and I absolutely loved it. Alright, now we'll get into the thing I already kind of touched on. The big twist at the end that Vulture is Liz Allen's dad. So Peter asks Liz to homecoming. She agrees to go. And then Peter goes to her house, knocks on the door, and guess who answers the door? Michael Keaton, Adrian Toomes. He opens the door. He answers the door. And he doesn't know, though. He doesn't know Peter's Spider-Man, so he just thinks it's the guy that's taking his daughter to the dance. But Peter knows that it's the Vulture, so he's flipping out. He's, like, really nervous. He's pale. He's scared. And then Keaton has no idea why. And then they're in the car, and they're talking about Spider-Man. And then Peter is talking and explaining things, you can see Toomes is starting to put two and two together. And then he realizes Peter's Spider-Man. Liz goes into the dance. He's like, Peter, stay here a minute. I gotta give him the dad talk. Then he pulls out a gun, and he's just like, does she know? And it was actually a really intense scene, and I loved it so much. And the twist was pulled off so well, because they set it up quite a bit throughout the whole movie, and it really just worked. And then there's the Iron Spider foreshadowing, which I don't even really want to call Iron Spider, really, because it doesn't look like Iron Spider, but a lot of people are calling it Iron Spider, even though it isn't. So I'm just going to call it Iron Spider, because I'm a follower like that. It was cool. I mean, it's not really anything special. It's probably going to be an Infinity War. That's probably going to be the big thing in Infinity War, is that he's going to have the Iron Spider armor, or a version of it, I guess. But he goes and sees Tony Stark after he defeats the Vulture, and then Tony is like, hey, I knew you were a good kid. You screwed the pooch, but then you did the good thing. You took it to the free clinic. You raised the hybrid pups. It was a really weird conversation. But then he's like, I got a bunch of reporters back behind there waiting for me to reveal the newest official member of the Avengers, Spider-Man. And then he shows him the new suit that he designed for him. And Peter's like, yeah, no, I'd just rather stay on the ground with help out the little guy. And then Tony's surprised by it. But then Peter leaves and he goes. And then he's like, that was a test, right? And he's like, yeah, you passed. And, then Gwyneth Paltrow comes in and the door opens and you can see all the reporters that were actually back there. And she's like, where's the kid? And it's great. And I don't hate that they brought Gwyneth Paltrow back. I'm gonna be completely honest, guys. I don't think Pepper is that great of a character. I don't even think she's that good of a character. She's just alright. And I guess for a love interest for Iron Man, I would hope for better than alright, but you know, she's fine, I guess. But it was kind of nice to see her in this movie again after she kind of just disappeared during the past couple movies, because in Avengers Age of Ultron, she wasn't there because she's got a company to run. And then in Civil War, they broke up, and so, yeah, it was just kind of nice to see the character come back. But then, we got the Stan Lee cameo. He plays this guy named Gary who's yelling out a window when Spider-Man accidentally stops this guy from breaking into his own car because, you know, can't be perfect. And then Donald Glover is in this movie. Guys, probably my favorite musician of all time at the moment, really, is Childish Gambino, who is otherwise known as Donald Glover, who is a pretty good actor. If you've seen the show Community, or I'm trying to think of what other movie he was in. The Martian. He's gonna be Lando in the Han Solo movie. Basically, dude is a great actor. Dude is a great musician. Dude gets me excited when he's gonna be in new movies. So when they said he was going to be in Spider-Man, especially after a lot of people wanted him to play Peter Parker in The Amazing Spider-Man, which I still think would have been absolutely freaking perfect. I'm sorry, I love Andrew Garfield, but Donald Glover would have been a way cooler Spider-Man. That would have been really awesome. But he's in this movie as Aaron Davis, the Prowler, who is the uncle of none other than Miles Morales, who, if you guys don't know, spoiler alert for the comic books, but in the Ultimate Universe, after Peter Parker dies, Miles Morales becomes the next Spider-Man. So that was kind of cool that they're subtly foreshadowing Miles Morales coming in the MCU eventually, because even Prowler says, he's like, I got a nephew who lives in this neighborhood. I don't want these kind of guns here. Stuff like that. And he helps Spider-Man, which is kind of cool because he's traditionally a villain, I think. I don't know much about the Prowler, but I'm assuming he's traditionally a villain. So it was kind of cool that he acts selflessly because he cares about someone else being safe, and that was kind of cool. And he gives him a little bit of advice. He's like, you got to get better at this part of the job. And they showed that bit in the trailer, and I was really confused as to why, because like who Donald Glover's character was going to be and why he had the kind of relationship with Peter Parker where he would say something like that. So I was just, that was one of the things that confused me about the marketing of this. But then we have a cameo by my favorite stand-up comedian, Hannibal Buress. He's in the movie as the gym teacher, Coach Wilson. And I can't remember the name of the actor, but Kenneth Choi. He plays Principal Merida, who is the great grandson of Jim Merida, one of the Howling Commandos in this movie right here. That was a cool tie-in. That was actually a great universe tie-in, and it was great that because Kenneth Choi actually played Jim Merida in Captain America 2, so it was just kind of Cool. And then I can't not talk about Karen, suit lady. So Peter and his friend Ned, they hack into his suit and basically disable the training wheels protocol and give Peter full access to the entirety of the suit's abilities. One of which being an AI named Suit Lady at first, and then he names her Karen. And she's voiced by Jennifer Connelly, who is the wife of Paul Bettany. And if you don't know who Paul Bettany is, he is the guy who did the voice of Jarvis in the first 3 Iron Man movies, as well as the Avengers movies, and played the Vision in Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War. So that's kind of cool. I think that's a really cool thing. And then I want to end off on a high note, guys. So there's a scene near the end of the movie. Ned is in the computer lab during the dance helping Peter, and then a teacher busts him for being in there when he's not supposed to, and she asks him what he's doing, and he closes the laptop and he goes, "I was looking at porn." Great joke. Busted out laughing. Was not expecting a joke like that in a Marvel movie, but honestly, it's great. It's funny. It's just so funny that he would rather go through that kind of embarrassment, and that's how much he wants to protect his friend's secret, that he would go through that level of embarrassment. And it was just a hilarious and great character moment for Ned, and, you know, again, it made the whole theater bust out laughing. And that's it, guys. Honestly, I think the more I've been thinking about Spider-Man Homecoming, the more I have just fallen in love with it. I still want to put Spider-Man 2 up at the top, just because that has been my favorite Spider-Man movie for years and years and years, and it will always be the one superhero movie that I will always go back to, no matter what. But Spider-Man Homecoming is a really close second, guys, and I would highly recommend watching it. Especially if you watched through this and decided, hey, I want to see the movie now. Even though I haven't seen it, now it's all spoiled. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Spider-Man Homecoming if you've seen it. And let me know what your favorite scene, character, or quote from the movie is. Feel free to go all in with spoilers if you want to talk about, the first Shocker. I forget the name of the character and the actor. He's the Tom Hardy lookalike guy, but if you want to talk about Herman Schultz Shocker, if you want to talk about Michael Keaton, his whole thing, Peter, his story, everything, just the floodgates of spoilers are broken. Feel free to discuss spoilers in the comments, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.